biohacking, performance, mastery, mindset. This is a show about getting better every single day. The Hack Life with Joel Levin. Welcome to the show. All right, I'm here with Keith Morey, founder of SGS, Super Good Stuff. Keith, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
We're back for round two. Round one was just so good. We couldn't fit in all the juicy nuggets in an hour. Last time I was in LA, we talked about a ton of cool stuff. I'll just to kind of recap people. We talked, well, first of all, you're the founder of Super Good Stuff, and I left last time LA with some amazing products that you guys have. Right here, if you're watching on video, I have the Immune Sweetener, which has these beta-glucans for immunity. I've been using it every day. My kids are using it in their oatmeal. They're loving it. So thanks for that. I've got this Bliss bottle spray. I've been putting it on people sore muscles, and it's been doing wonders. You gave me the nasal wash, which we might have to talk about. I didn't talk about too much on the last episode, which you pretty much waterboarded me and then did some nasal rinsing. But you were telling me, Joel, you have to do that because the nasal passage, I want to say you said is like 100 square feet, and it's just so much.
100 square feet.
100 square feet, and you said it's just so much that most people, they do a squirt of something up their nose, but they're not cleaning out the nasal passages. And then the last thing I left home was this liquid NRG, and you told me very confident. Yeah, you told me very confidently. You said, Joel, this gets rid of headaches in 30 seconds. I think is what you told me. I said, okay. I have to tell you this. My wife had a headache the other day, and I said, try this stuff that my buddy gave me, and she's like, okay. She tried. By the way, my wife is super skeptical of these kind of things. She's like, okay, sure, I'll try it. Headache went away. She was like, let me see the ingredients because she couldn't believe it. She goes, and she says, this stuff actually tastes good. I've never seen a product that actually tastes good and works. She couldn't believe that the two actually aligned. So you're doing something right, my friend. I have to tell you.
Well, I can tell you that product. I went to Tahoe, and there was a storm coming. So I wanted to leave at midnight to beat the storm in the morning. And so I only took an hour nap before I left. So I worked all day, took an hour nap, and left at midnight. Got there at 11. Barely, the storm was there, but I got through to the place because I was driving my Tesla. And it's not very good in the snow, I wouldn't say. Right? And never got tired. Every hour and a half, I'd take a dropper full, right? Sometimes two. Never got tired, felt great, got there at 11, didn't go and take a nap until 2 in the afternoon, 2:30. 2:30. Did it for an hour and a half, stayed up went dinner and everything else, and then went to sleep. Never felt tired ever.
Wow.
And no hype, no jitters, no discomfort of any sort. And I don't know if you ever driving and you don't know how you got there, because it was just like a routine, and then boom, the whole 12 or whatever hours I was there doing this, never know how I got there. I mean, my mind was always thinking about things and stuff, and time just went past me. I did from Santa Fe to Laguna Niguel, 17 hours straight, never got tired, ever. It's an unbelievably great product because there's no hype, no jitters, and it's actually anti-aging.
Yeah, and I can testify because I drove 16 hours total, but I broke my day up in 6 and then 10-hour days when I was driving back when I saw you in LA back to Idaho, and I was popping it on my way back. I was taking some dropper fulls, and so I felt great.
Yeah, it's an amazing product, and I was in Tahoe for my birthday. I turned 68, and I feel great. I just played racquetball last night. I played 7 games of racquetball in a league. I have no knees, back joint problems at all. You don't have to grow old, There you go.
I figure I'll take some. I'll take some right now. Why not?
Yeah,
Better than coffee.
Much better than coffee. um, it basically knocks out histamine and excess cortisol. And I actually did a little study of 10 people for headaches. And literally, we did a blood test before and a urine test. 5 minutes later, we did a blood test. And 30 minutes later, we did a blood test and a urine. Literally, in 5 minutes, you couldn't find any histamine in the blood or the urine at all.
Wow.
It was gone. And 30 minutes later, there was literally the cortisol level was down, and there was no histamine in the blood or the urine.
That's incredible, because what we see too with folks with, I can't say I could say the word, but I'll try to avoid it. The C word, the C virus. What we see with them is histamine issues. The ones that are the long haulers, we see histamine issues. So this would be an amazing product then for anybody that's having that.
You actually, when you take it, if you haven't noticed, your sinuses open up. You know, I mean, this is just, we did a test. I mean, we did it 10 people, clinical, you know, with a doctor and everything, and showing that every single person got rid of their headache. It works. It doesn't work on migraines or anything of that nature.
And for migraines, you have another, I think you told me you have something different.
Well, I have something else that supports the body for migraines.
Got it.
We can't say anything about migraines as a disease, but it does support the body for migraines. It uses copper 1, which, see, the problem is typically a tension headache is an expansion of the blood vessels because of histamine. Okay? So the body says, oh, with a migraine, that says we shouldn't be expanding like this. We got to get rid of that. We're going to shrink it. The problem is they're usually more toxic people, and the biofeedback loop, it overreacts and over shrinks it, causing a migraine. Okay? Problem is you've used up all the histamine. You know, it's shrinking the histamine. So to expand it back out, it doesn't expand rapidly because the biofeedback loop can't adjust fast enough. And it seems that copper 1 seems to speed up the neurotransmission or something, and helps with and supports the body to become normal.
Love it.
Again.
I love it. So, you know, last time we left off, you started our podcast off and you said, listen, Joel, when it comes to dis-ease of the body, there's 3 main things: fungus and mold, low body temp, and root canals. Right. And our last episode, we had enough time. You went into fungus and mold, you covered root canals, but we missed low body temp. So I thought it'd be good to just kind of start off there and kind of talk about why that you find that to be one of the top 3, drivers of disease.
In my world, and I've been doing this for 28 years, no positions that I know of really address low body temperature, other than trying to, and they don't even address it unless they see it in the blood. They don't really look at low body temperature, the temperature in your mouth when you take it with a thermometer. They just don't look at it. Typically, I learned this when I was the first couple of years I was in business, actually probably the first year. I had a Dr. Day. He talked about low body temperature, and I had 97.8. So I did a time release, time activated T3, raised it until my temperature got to normal, stayed on it for 3 weeks, backed off of it, and my temperature was normal. And I felt better. But I didn't really understand the mechanics till years and years later, because I was doing people's detoxes, right? And I'd have the same symptoms, same everything. One would get better and the other one wouldn't have any effect. And I was trying to figure out, how can I fix 80% or correct 80% of people's problems, and 20% doesn't change at all in the same symptoms? It took me 2 years to relate it back to temperature. And when I went back to all these people, and they all had low body temperature. So then I said, well, what am I going to do? Initially I took them sent them to a doctor to do the time release, time activated T3. But what I found was it worked for a while, right? and they were good. But as soon as they got back into stress, the temperature dropped again. So let's look at the mechanics of that. Why? So I put a scenario together, like a caveman, right? Caveman falls off a cliff, breaks his leg. He goes into a fight or flight mode. And the reason his lineage survived and another lineage died off is in his fight or flight, the T3, which is normally a left-handed molecule, the body did a reverse T3, which is a right-handed molecule, which dilutes the T3 that activates the energy, lowered the body temperature, so he could live an extra couple of weeks on his body fat because he was burning less calories. So he stayed in the cave, healed up, went out and hunted, the stress went away, the body converted back to a left-handed T3, and everything was copacetic, right? Problem in our society, it doesn't work that way. Because we're already compromised by a fungal infection, let's bring it up, craving for carbohydrates, moodier than you'd care to admit to, sex drive not what you would like it to be, short-term memory, hypoglycemic, that means fatigue mid-afternoon, a little anxious if you haven't eaten, fatty foods aren't sitting well with your digestive tract, and you're getting bloated once in a while. This is typical symbols of a severe fungal infection. Depending on how good your immune system, I've seen people have none of those symptoms, but they didn't feel good. But what you learn is they don't get sick. They don't feel good, but they don't get sick because their immune system is so strong. They're suppressing all those symptoms. They're controlling it. But eventually the control wears out. They get older, the immune system starts to weather, the infection gets stronger, and all of a sudden they go south. Like, boom, they don't understand why they were not sick all their lives, and all of a sudden they're sick. Does that make sense?
Totally, and I see it all the time. I mean, I have a naturopath mentor who always talks about the rain barrel effect, and that, yeah, I mean, we can handle all these stressors for a certain amount of time. Our body's very resilient, but over time, you can only put on so much stress into your rain barrel. You can only put in so many toxicities and chemicals and funguses before you start to overflow, and then that manifests in what we call disease.
Correct. So here's the problem. My generation was halfway healthy. The generation before me, they were much healthier, right? Every generation is getting weaker and more corrupt. The 18s, 15-year-olds are like 25-year-olds. And the 25-year-olds are like 40-year-olds. Yep. Their whole system is breaking down, and it's only their youth is holding them together. And their immune systems are weaker than each generation is getting weaker. So we have a real corrupt situation going around here, right? Because if you look at the base, this is why the kids aren't happy. Not to get so direct, but the sex drive of a 16-year-old today is non-existent almost. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
They may talk about everything, but they just have sex to feel normal. You can ask them. This is the beauty of what I do, because I talk to so many people and I interact and I take calls from 9 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night because I enjoy what I do. And I talk to these younger kids, and when they're frank, they admit to it. They said, it's just not a real item anymore. They do it just to feel normal. It's like a stimulant. It's like somebody that weightlifts to get the endorphin highs, but they have to weightlift to do it. They don't feel it normally. They don't feel normal. It's terrible.
Yeah, you're 100% right. A couple books I just read on this topic talking exactly what you're saying. The Infertility Epidemic by Dr. Shauna Swan. The book's called Countdown. She talks about this we are in a huge infertility epidemic. Men can't get women pregnant, and women can't get they're not fertile. And she talks about also libido and what you just said, that because of all these estrogens and these xenoestrogens and the glyphosate and everything, it's happening, and you're seeing it. And then you're seeing also births. People there, even the births are
Going
backwards.
down.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. And so she talks about that, and then I'm reading Dr. Stephanie Seneff's book on glyphosate right now, and she mentioned the same thing that you talked about. So yeah, you're 100% right.
So the whole system is broke, right? And in that process, you throw in, so the body's already stressed. Our civilization is a stressed civilization. Look at the wars and this and everything else that's going on. And you throw in your body's not producing the hormones and everything, which you have to listen to the first podcast, why that is. So you don't have the hormones that you had before. You don't have all these things. And so it's easily to go off the cliff. So thyroid is where you go off the cliff. Okay? It's where the thyroid is a hormone fiend. It has to have hormones to function properly. It has 4 chambers. It does a number of things. And one of the things is temperature. So when you drop below 98.4, you start to deactivate enzymes. What do I mean by deactivate? They operate slower. Okay? When you go below 97.8, you deactivate a lot of enzymes. This means you can't digest your food properly to make the chemicals. You can't make chemicals in your brain and body fast enough to operate properly. And you can't break apart waste material to eliminate properly. You can't get rid of the waste material, so you become a sewage pit. So you just add insult to injury. You're already stressed, you're not making your hormones, you got a fungal infection, and now you throw, the thing is that you can't process things to even help your body function properly. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Okay. So now you throw in like Fukushima. Now, people hear about Fukushima and that happened in Japan and the radiation and everything. They don't relate that in California, the rads used to be 20 or 30 rads for radiation. Now they're 450, 650. And that's just not in California.
Wow.
They go across the whole country, Florida, Colorado. Rads are way up, 450, 600, depending on the wind shift and everything else. And these particles are everywhere, and they live 300,000 years. So the radiation is bombarding our system. And what does the thyroid have problems with? Radiation. When you talk about a nuclear bomb, they talk about taking potassium chloride, right, to protect the thyroid primarily from radiation. Okay? So we have a whole system that's falling apart. So what I've noticed where to detox somebody, and MSM, we talked about MSM, but MSM removes radiation and heavy metals and radiation. I can go out in the sun and take 20 grams of MSM. That sounds like a lot, but I've taken 100 grams. I've taken 180 IV. I take 20 grams to 40 grams a day. And I've been doing this for literally 28 years, right? But I can go out 20 grams, and I learned this. I understood what it did, but I didn't realize it until I did a client in in Florida, a girl that she couldn't go out in the sun because she would blister and very overnight, right? And I said, try taking 20 grams before, because she had already detoxed with me and everything else. And she went out in the sun, and she says, I can go out in the sun for the first time. I can't believe it. I don't burn. And so, I had burned I was in Hawaii, and I went 30 minutes on one side, 30 minutes on the other side, and I couldn't go out for a week, right? So the next time I went to Hawaii, I did 20 grams, 2 or 3 hours, no burning. So it's an amazing product for radiation. But the point being is with this radiation, it's damaging tissue. It's damaging your immune system. It's corrupting your thyroid. It's doing all these things, and it degrades the whole body. So it makes it more vulnerable to stress. So the thyroid needs hormones. If you're stressed, you're dragging the hormones to go somewhere else instead of the thyroid. And so it's vulnerable to a change, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have a death in the family, a car accident, a divorce, loss of a job, some calamity occurs, and it's the straw that broke the camel's back. The thyroid goes south like the caveman falling off the cliff. Yep. Right? Problem is, you may go through that stress and get over it, but the stress of our society never stops. So it never switches the T3 back from a right back to a left, and your temperature drops, and you don't notice it in the beginning because you got reserves, you got things, and the first 6 months a year, it's just kind of, you just don't have the energy level, you don't think, and then it starts to go bad and bad and bad, and makes you more vulnerable to Lyme disease, things with viruses, because what happens when you have a virus? You raise your temperature to make an environment that kills the virus. Mm-hmm. Well, if you can't raise your temperature, you live with more viruses. You're more prone to getting viruses, and you have no way to fight them when you get them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm tracking you. I love this.
Okay. So we have a system that's broke. Once it's broke, it's hard to repair itself because the system is broke as a whole. Okay. So what I've learned is what you have to do is you have to rebuild the thyroid. You give things to support it. You get things to remove. Initially, I just worked on mental stress. I thought, okay, I'll fix the mental stress, and then the thyroid will kick back in and everything's good. It got me about 70%, right? And then I said, well, I'm only at 70%. How do I get to 100%? Right? Now, what's the difference? Because there's no difference between physical stress and mental stress. The body doesn't look at it as different, right? So if you're having physical stress, like an infection, your hormones aren't regulated right, you're not, your environment, your boss, this sort of thing, all these stress avenues, if you don't address the physical stress as well as the mental stress, the thyroid will never kick back. So I'm talking a lot. Do you have any questions so far?
No, I'm just kind of I'm listening to the whole process and how you just how you look at it, like you said, the low body temp, and then just how you got there. So it's just really interesting to hear you talk about the 4 chambers and just again how you started to piece it together. And I'm just curious now that I'm listening to you, I'm just curious. Okay, so how do we rebuild it? How do we fix it? Because I know you have some things, and we were talking just before the podcast that you have very high success rates in just 18 days. And I meant to ask you, but I knew I was going to ask you now, is when you say 18 days, that just, first of all, to rebuild someone's thyroid, that just seems like ridiculous. There's no way that could possibly happen. But when you say that, I'm also curious, like, is that like, for the most part, just a sluggish thyroid, or are we talking about anybody even with like Graves, Hashimoto's, anybody that has those kind of thyroid issues as well?
I'm just going to say I have an extremely high rate of success. And I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to get the body back into homeostasis. So I'm just supporting the body to do its own functions. So I'm not trying to correct these things directly. It's just the side benefit of correcting the body is correcting itself.
Right. Well, and we'll just say right now, you're not a doctor. You're not saying that you can heal, cure, or treat any disease. All you're saying, and I think if I understand you correctly, as many of the amazing people I've come in contact with in my life, is that hey, I'm just giving the body the support it needs, and when the body has that input, that it knows how to heal itself. It knows how to get better.
The body's an amazing machine. I mean, when you look at all the things that dealing with viruses and how it builds antibodies and does all these things, I mean, it can do whatever it needs to do if given the raw materials to do it.
Yep.
So I don't cure anything. I just feed the body what it needs to do its job.
Yep.
Right? So my first thing is I reduce physical stress. And we'll talk about that's the first segment, dealing with fungus and mold and things of that nature that needs to be cleaned up, and that the gallbladder is the hub of the body, and it needs to make hormones and digest fats to make cholesterol that makes pregnenolone that feeds the adrenals to make estrogen, progesterone to support the body to do its job. See, I'm not attacking the thyroid or just dealing with the thyroid itself. This is the problem with a lot of practitioners. They say, oh, well, we're going to deal with your liver. Well, that's great. So that you fix your liver, then, oh, well, the kidneys now. But then you do the kidneys, and the liver's fouled up because you never fixed what the underlying cause was of the liver. It was the gallbladder. If you don't fix the gallbladder, you can't fix the liver, right? So to fix individual items is ridiculous in my viewpoint. I fix the whole body at one time. I support the whole body and let it fix itself, right? Why do individual things instead of just doing the whole thing and get the job done? Because practitioners want to make it easy on the person and they want to do this and softly and everything. Well, you're going to be there until the cows come home because it never gets the job done, right? I just down and dirty, fix the whole body, give it all it needs, let it fix itself. So I don't fix anything. I let the body fix itself. Okay? So first thing, I do a liver gallbladder flush. I support it with all these nutritional things. I fix the brain. I reduce the brain stress. People don't realize stress of the brain, right? And there's lots of chemicals out there that supports the brain to do that, which I have created to support that. You've got to support the hormone base, which is the gallbladder. You have to do a liver gallbladder flush to let the bile be released instead of backing up into the liver and then fouling up the liver and causing the kidneys to foul up, causing the liver to throw it to the the skin and lungs is the third kidney. All these things have to clean up and let them do their own job, right?
Yep.
Give them the power to do their job, right? So I do the liver gallbladder flush. I support the liver. I support the kidneys. I support the brain. I give natural oils and stuff to knock down the infection that has caused all these problems because of antibiotic use, which knocks 2/3 of the digestive tract off. So it's all these elements. You just do all at the same time, right?
Got it.
And then I give things to reduce mental stress, adrenal cortex and things of that nature. Unbelievable product. And the next thing you know, the body corrects itself. And this is what was the problem with doing a time-release, time-activated T3. It raised the temperature, got the temperature right, but the first time there was any kind of stress, the body grabbed the hormones to handle the stress, and the thyroid didn't get what it did, and the temperature dropped again. Boom. Right? So it wasn't long-lasting. My wife's a good example. I don't know. This is my wife will. I should have my wife do it, but I'll say, and she'll back me up because I met her at a show in L.A. at Hilton. Somebody dragged me over to these two girls, and they had some problems, and I fixed a couple of their muscle discomfort and everything else. We can't say what that was in like 15 minutes. And she was telling me she'd been sick for 15 years, been to 12 different doctors, even put peroxide in her arteries, which, by the way, destroyed her blood vessels. She could hardly get a needle in there anymore.
Wow.
And she's been sick, and tried everything. When I heard that, I knew she had low body temperature because the doctors, the medical thing, don't look at low body temperature as a problem. You're a degree, within a degree and a half, you're good. Well, that's not true. As I said, when you drop below 98.4, you start to deactivate enzymes. Before dropping below 97.8, you deactivate a lot of enzymes, meaning they operate slower. So I said, you have low body temperature. He goes, what's body temperature? He goes, no medical men ever mentioned temperature. What's the problem with temperature? I said, and I explained it to her just like I explained it to you. So she goes, I'm going to try that because I've tried everything. And, you sound like you almost know what you're talking about. And so 18 days later, temperature was, she was 96.8 when we checked it. And when we finished the 18 days, she was 98.4. So I guess something I did supported the body to fix itself.
Yeah.
And and then now she was able to detox. So we did an 11-day detox where there's diarrhea for 11 days and you do all these things and blah, blah, blah. That sounds like it's bad, but it's controllable. In other words, you have, 10 to 15 minutes to be able to get to the bathroom and stuff. And it's quite intense. No doubt about it that there's a lot of diarrhea, but it's controllable. And it's more of the regimen that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Right? But next thing you know, she didn't have any problems. Been sick for 15 years with all these things, all these doctors, everything's trying to fix it, doing everything they can, every kind of process you can imagine, because she's very diligent about trying everything and very regimented. She didn't mind, like, methodically.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, 29 days later, no problems.
That's amazing.
No, it is amazing because people suffer. And I'm not trying to say I can work miracles and everything. I just address the body and support it. Let it do the job.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, that's a good example. But it's related to other diseases. Now, my theory, and I actually have implemented it a couple of times, MS. What's MS? Everybody says, oh, it's this thing and it's not curable and all this kind of crazy stuff. I beg to differ. I'm not
and Keith, MS. I gotta cut you off. When I was in LA, I got a chance to meet someone who works for you now.
Yes.
But she had MS, like very bad form too. She told me her story, and she was like, yeah, and then
she's staring at me right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see, firsthand, and this wasn't just like a little MS like case. Like she had some full blown symptoms, and to see her now and vibrant and vital force, like you would have never thought.
She had it for 30 years.
Amazing.
There's different stages of MS, right? It's if you're really proactive, you keep the lesions. See, once you have lesions, you only can repair it to a certain amount, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing. You can't. A lesion is where the damage to the sheath around the nerve, the myelin sheath, is so damaged that the let's just say it's like the myelin sheath is like the rubber around an electrical cord, and if it's cracking and there's another electrical cord and it's snapping things, you have long-term damage, and there's not much you can do about it other than go back 6 months or something, right?
But if you could stop the disease at its base, then the root cause, then who cares?
You have little breaks in it, but they're not lesions yet.
Yeah.
And I think she had controlled it to where she had all the side effects, but they weren't super deep. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Right? Would you say that's correct, Jill?
Yeah, they weren't staying as recurring remissive, so we were constantly.
Oh, so you're going back and forth. But she could, when I met her, she could barely talk. She would stagger and stuff. but it wasn't that she wasn't walking funny, but she shook like the devil, and all I did is support the body. That's all I did. Give the body what it needed to correct itself.
So in that case, Keith, and I'm curious, when someone comes to you, right, and like we were talking beforehand, I don't care what it is, MS, asthma, pulmonary fibrosis, psoriasis, diverticulitis, right? Any disease of the body, right? When they come to you, do you have kind of like a framework in your head where you're like, okay, like every root cause, do you think like first attack fungus and mold, then go to low body temp, and then kind of work your way through that kind of
I go
framework?
to low body temp first because you
Okay.
can't get better with low body temp. If you don't fix the low body temp, you can't get to the ability to detox the body. How can you activate the things I'm trying to support the body to heal itself? How can I support the body to heal itself if you can't make the chemicals? You can't
Yeah.
break the chemicals down that I give you to help the body. So you have to do the thyroid, and this is where everybody gets it off. They try to support the disease to be and try to kill it, do whatever. You can't do it if you can't use the chemicals you're giving them and utilize them properly. So they may have the greatest products in the world, but if the temperature's low, they can't fix them.
Got it.
So then I go to detoxing, right? But before that, I don't even bother dealing with people if they have root canals. And briefly, because it's so simple, you got a tooth and you got a root system. The drill only goes straight down. How can you kill the infection that the base is bigger than the top? Right? How can you kill it off? Antibiotics don't kill all bacteria and fungus in the body, right?
Right.
It doesn't do it. Lasers and stuff can't kill that deep into the root system, especially if it's in the bone, right? You can't do it. And so if you type in, do root canals really work, you'll see horror stories that they don't work. Now, I can't fix the tooth. I can probably support the body if it's just starting to help mitigate some of the problem and maybe even stop the onset of a disease in the tooth. You can support the body, but sometimes you just have to pull the tooth. I had a woman, she had thyroid cancer, and she had she had low body temperature, she had a fungal infection, she had all the symptoms, and I said, "How are your teeth?" And she goes, "My teeth are great." I said, "Any root canals?" And she goes, "Yeah, I have two, but the dentist did a great job. Doesn't hurt. It's fabulous. I recommend them to anybody." And my suggestion is that if I were you, I wouldn't deal with it. I would take them out. That's my opinion, right? Because I don't know anything. I'm not a doctor or anything, but from my experience, that's what I would do. And so you do whatever you want to do. She goes, "I don't want to pull my teeth. I don't want to." I said, "Well, type in, do root canals really work?" And, thing. She did on her own. I didn't even talk to her. And basically, she went on the internet and she saw that there was meridians. This is where the acupuncturists go, and they start from the top of the head down the toes. Very well established,
Yep.
Acupuncturists. And she found that each meridian goes through a tooth, and each tooth goes to a different organ. What a coincidence. The first root canal went to her thyroid. Now, that could be a thing, but it spurred her to think about, maybe I'll pull one tooth, right? She pulls the tooth. Calls me back 3 days later, crying profusely. The woman couldn't stop crying forever. And I finally got a word in edgewise, found out she pulled the tooth, opened up an infection she wasn't aware of. The pain was so severe, she hadn't slept for 72 hours straight in agonizing pain. And her comment to me is, I want to commit suicide.
Ugh.
So I helped her out with that. I gave her some things to do and stuff. And a few hours later, even though she had tried, I think she went all the way to morphine, trying to get rid of the pain. Because she tried Advil, Tylenol. She went to all these other things to mitigate the pain through doctors. Couldn't mitigate the pain. And I did some things. And a couple hours later, the pain was gone. And then she pulled the second tooth, and it was all infected and but she knew what to do now to knock that out. I don't know if I should be saying this because I'm not a doctor. I'm just trying to help mitigate.
You didn't say you
the
cured her
natural
or
thing
treated
that
her.
I had nothing to do.
You're just saying like somehow her pain went away. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. And I didn't. I just gave her things that supported her body to mitigate that. Right. Funny thing, we fixed her thyroid, and then we supported the body to raise the temperature up to 98.4. Because it seems 98.4 seems to be like this. Because to get it all the way to 98.6, you have to do a longer term, and I've had people even do it twice to get there.
That's what I was gonna say. Do people do like kind of every 3 months, maybe quarterly detoxes or quarterly?
Well, it's a matter of it's a temperature that the body feels comfortable. See, actually, if you ever see people that have low body temperature, they always look really good. They look really young and everything because they're not overcooking the meat. That extra degree and a half makes a huge difference in how they look over years and years and years of lower temperature. Like
that makes
cook
sense.
a piece of turkey, for 150 degrees, in like 3 hours and cook the turkey, right? But you just
it makes sense too. We look at aging. We talk about glycation, right, inside your body. Your body is like literally like cooking, and so it makes sense.
Now, so basically, we raised her temperature, we detoxed her, and it was a miracle. The body healed itself.
Now she didn't get all your advice right away. Now, if she were to do this again, I would assume prior to getting the tooth removed, you would be doing things like raising the body temperature. Wouldn't that just make more sense? Raise it prior, and then once the tooth is removed, you're already at a higher base point, right?
Well, the thing is, you can't raise the temperature if you have a disease in you that's poisoning. If you look at it, the infection in the tooth is putting out waste material from the infection and spreading the infection. So it's putting stress on the body. So without doing the teeth, you're not guaranteed you're going to fix the thyroid or support the thyroid to fix itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just thinking like anytime someone would go to do anything like some kind of procedure or something like that, if you can kind of go in at a little bit of a higher, state, it'd be easier. Or even if you're getting your mercury amalgams removed, right? If you could go in there and then do a little bit of a support for your body prior.
There's so many things you could do to support your body and everything else. And the thing is, amalgams and mercury is really a nasty thing. And I removed those when I was probably 35, 32, 35. But again, you can do down and dirty. Like for instance, somebody had root canals all over the place, right? You can clean them up. They're just going to get dirty again, right? They'll get better for a while and they'll maintain a good diet and everything, but eventually underlying other causes will degrade the body.
Yeah.
You have to kind of really attack it as a whole. I'd say attack. I'm not like doing anything. I'm just supporting the body. I mean, you give it food, don't you? You support your body by eating, organic this and thing, and you're going to be healthier than somebody most likely that doesn't. Somebody that drinks a lot is not going to get, as supported as somebody that doesn't drink. So when I do a protocol, I said, hey, you can't eat this crap. You can't eat all this chocolate and donuts and carbohydrates. That's all I'm doing. I'm just supporting the body. And I'm telling you, hey, you can't drink. Now, later on, if you want to drink a little bit, that my suggestion, but just be prepared that you're going to go downhill, later on. So if you look at what I'm doing is I'm not fixing anything. I'm just supporting the body to fix itself.
Totally. No, that makes sense. I'm curious too. Then, I mean, you're a healthy guy, but do you do cleanses, like again, quarterly or routinely, just to kind of keep your body in a peak state? Or you own a supplement company, what supplements do you take? I'm curious. Like, what's in your protocol, like regularly?
I guaranteed I take 20 grams to 30 grams of MSM every day.
And that's not, is that one shot or is that like throughout the day?
What's that?
Do you do that in one straight shot or is that like throughout the day?
Actually, I'm lazy. I just take like last night I took 3 tablespoons, like probably 50 grams of MSM. And this morning I took 1 teaspoon. But last night I played 6-7 games of racquetball. So I'm trying to get rid of the lactic acid and I'm trying to make disulfonyl bond, double sulfur bonds, and MSM is 34% sulfur so that I don't get injured. Mm-hmm. I've been playing 18 years, maybe 19 years, anywhere from 10 games a week to 20 games a week. And when I was younger, I was doing a lot more because I was in like 3 leagues, right? But business gets busy and, shit happens,
Yeah.
But I have no injuries, no knees, back joints. I did tear a slight rotator cuff, but that wasn't from playing racquetball. That was for being on the slopes about 60 days ago in Mammoth where I got stuck on a thing and I was trying to pull myself up. And it was an odd movement and slight tear, but it's pretty much gone now.
Nice.
That's the first injury I've had.
Wow.
I'm crazy for all the games I play, and I run like the devil. Mm-hmm. I mean, you wouldn't believe that I'm 68 the way fast I run. I beat 90% of the people I play with, and they're all much younger than me.
Wow.
Anyway, I throw trainers.
You told me that on the first. Yeah. Man.
I only worked out 3 to 4 times a year. I hate weightlifting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about this and I just toss them.
Yeah, we were talking about that, and you were in the first episode. You were talking about just how much, and how the body works to rebuild itself, and like why it can be detrimental to be working out so much, and that most of the time we're just doing it to rush for those endorphins, right?
Well, yeah, because most of these weightlifters, and then they go all 3, 4, 5 days a week and everything, they're just tearing themselves up. They're not getting rid of the lactic acid. They're looking for the endorphin runs, just like a runner runs till he's crawling, and then he crawls until he's doing by his hands.
Yeah.
They're trying to get that endorphin rush because it's the only time that they feel normal, right? They feel good.
Yeah.
But they only last a few hours, so they're looking for the next time they can run or the next time they can weightlift. It's not good for them. It's not good for the body. Now I play all this racquetball, but I'm supporting the lactic acid damage by getting the MSM in there, sucking it all out, so I don't get into the endorphin stage typically. Now there's a once in a while when I play a lot, I get it for a short time, but I'm supporting it so there's less damage to the body because of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, amazing stuff. I think we covered a lot here on this episode, just talking about fungus, mold, low body temp, root canals. A couple more things I wanted to ask you, and then we can kind of wrap things up. I mean, we might have to even just come back and I might have to interview you once a year because you just have so much good stuff to talk about. But I don't think we really talked too much about the nasal rinse, and I thought maybe you could kind of talk because it's very unique, your methodology to this, and I've never heard anybody say that. Like, yeah, Joel, it's like I've heard of Navages, I've heard of nebulizers. You're like, yeah, it doesn't matter, and you had me upside down on this chiropractor, like a water board, and maybe you can kind of describe the importance of that and what you're seeing with this nasal wash product and why it's been so effective.
Well, people say I'm a little extreme on things, but at the end of the day, I get results, right? And so my son had ear infection, and he was pouring alcohol, and he'd had it for months, and he was trying this, that, and the other. I said, Kevin, it's an internal problem aggravated by an external problem, right? So you need to fix this to fix this, right? And I just mixed something up in my sink, literally, and I sprayed it in, and oh man, and this is draining me. And I said, that's what it's supposed to do, right? And I said, look, my breathing's really good. See, look, I'm doing, and mine drained more than his did. I actually tell you the truth, when I was 40, when I did my first MSM detox, I turned jaundice, and I'm the only person in 28 years of doing MSM detoxes that turned jaundice. That's how sick I was when I was 40. Okay, I had my appendix out when I was 18. I was not a healthy person, right? And so he did it, and it worked better and better, and cleared his problem. And I haven't seen him have a problem since, right? Because we have 100 square feet. I believe it's 100 square feet of surface area, all jiggery jaggery inside that, which has a lot of encapsulated. Strep throat and all sorts of things, bacteria and everything, because we breathe in all that stuff and the immune system tries to control it, but sometimes it has to encapsulate it, and it just sits there for years because the immune system won't let go of it because it doesn't want it to spread, yet it's not strong enough to kill it off. And once in a while it gets strong enough, and all of a sudden you get a strep throat, and you say, well, who gave this to me? You gave it to yourself because your immune system got a little stronger and attacked it.
Yeah.
Finished the job off. So the sinus cavity, 100 square feet of toxic materials, and this is what people don't understand. Some of them in the brain. And I said, wait, there's a brain barrier that's supposed to keep any of those pathogens out of the brain. Studies out in the last 10 years show that there's a break above the nose. 40% of the population has a break in the blood-brain barrier, that location at birth or somewhere near birth, right?
Wow.
So pathogens can get into the brain. So all I'm doing is flushing out. It's a nasal flush, and we're flushing it out and cleaning it out. And the stuff that comes out of you is pretty amazing, and how you feel afterwards is pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, but
I'm
your
number one
method,
seller out of 68 products, and I only make products that work.
your methodology though is very unique. Like, do you always recommend the way we did it? That's the best way to do it is, and to do it like you said, like you have the little thing here, right? I could just take a squirt here and there, and every now and then do it, but like. When we did it that day, I must have done it like 7 times upside down. Is that kind of the way that you recommend?
Okay, so let's look at it. If it's 100 square feet, that's a 10 by 10 room. If you went around and sprayed that little sprayer and did 110, 100 square feet, that bottle would last like one little corner, maybe a quarter of a corner or whatever. But if you poured it out, it kind of goes all over the place. You can spread it out and the thing. Basically, you're trying to get the cleansing ability to be spread out in the whole cavity, right? So I sometimes do 20, 30 sprays in each nostril, right? But now it's in an area that already has fluid. It already has liquid.
Right.
And it's washing around like a dishwasher, cleansing out and just blowing it out. So it's really just it's like a surfactant mixing with your own fluids to remove the waste material out of the sinus cavity.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, the technique is I'm upside down. I'm just inhaling for a certain amount of sprays. And then after doing both nostrils, you had me, I think, kind of blow but hold. Is that right? And then blow up.
What I'm trying to do is when you're sitting up, you try to put a little pressure, like you're trying to pop your ears,
Pop your ears. There you go.
Right? And that just pushes the fluid into different cavities, little things, and in turn, your ears usually pop and they open up. And if there's any discomfort or waste material in there, it helps remove it and flush it out.
Got it. Yeah.
It works really well.
Yeah.
It's my number one seller by threefold.
Wow.
No one has anything to really, detergent, so to speak, to clean out the nasal cavity properly.
And I think your second bestseller is the adrenal corticoid one, right? The Cortex, yeah. Yep.
That is I sell a ton to doctors, because it supports the adrenals to look at the adrenals as a syringe. You have stress, adrenals actually produce adrenal cortex, which is the main chemical to handle stress. So it injects it, kind of handles, so you're able to cope under a serious situation. It was basically, the body uses it in the fight or flight primarily. Not primarily, but in a lot of cases. You have a fight or flight, and either you're going to beat the hell out of somebody, or you're going to discern that they're too big for you and you're going to run like the devil, right? Either way, you have to decide, because that adrenaline wants you to fight. It wants you to start to make blows. Mm-hmm. But the adrenal cortex gives you that small window of thinking. Am I able to win, or do I need to run and wait for another day? Right? And that adrenal cortex does that. So if you're really stressed, a death in the family, a car accident, a divorce, you get all the stress, you can mitigate some of that by taking adrenal cortex and supporting your adrenals to be able to cope with the stress that you're in.
Yeah, I love that. We talked about this one in the first episode, and you even mentioned how you can use it, or it has been used for trauma, and like using it as a source. You can like write out your trauma as you're taking it, and you've seen some great effects with.
Well, we're just basically giving the body what the adrenals produce to support the body to handle things.
Yes.
Right? Not necessarily stress, but whatever it's dealing with, right? And by doing that, the adrenals normally kind of go in for stress, and at the end of the day, you got adrenal fatigue where it's moving 1,000,000 miles an hour to give you anything to cope. But if you give something to just help the general body take its normal things that it does during the day to cope with general everyday stress, everyday things that you deal with, the boss yelling and this, that, or the other, it allows the adrenals to start to rebuild, because it doesn't have to have those chemicals being pushed in. It allows it to start to cope with it and rebuild the adrenals. And then now you don't need the adrenal cortex because it has a supply ready for it when it needs it.
Yep.
I'm talking for general thing. Anything, depression and all those other things, that's a whole different animal. We're talking about just supporting your body to cope with things, and it will cope and do what it needs to cope with other things.
Got it. I want to kind of wrap things up, but I'm curious. Any exciting projects that you guys are working on? I know last time I saw you, you had some amazing chocolate that I was beta testing, which was really, really good.
Yeah, I got to do that. It just takes money and stuff. But that was a chocolate that actually would reduce hunger for food, actually. Yeah. And it boosts your immune system, right? It had all these elements in it, and we could talk about that as another day. But I love that. I think it's just, you have to make 10,000 bars,
Yeah.
So, it takes money, and then I got to prepare it, and I'm busy. I got something new for kids with autism. I think it's a very supportive mechanism that I think it's going to be amazing. Um, but
That's
the
the
thing is, we have to
Spectrum,
do
right?
studies on it and stuff.
The Super Spectrum. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's called off spectrum. You know,
And that's out. You can buy that, right? I think I saw that on the website.
you can buy that right now. It's an unbelievable product. I want to do some studying on it because we're seeing some preliminary good positive direction with it.
Now I have to ask you. I'm gonna buy some right when we get done. I'm gonna buy some and I'm gonna use it on my son. Now I knowing
Is
you,
he on the
Keith.
spectrum?
No, but he's got some behavioral stuff here every now and then. He's got some aggression issues. I think that could be worked out. Maybe he needs some adrenal cortex. I don't know.
All these things are positive things to support the body again.
Yeah.
We're not here to fix anything. We're supporting the body to fix itself.
But I'm wondering, on that note, do you do high dosage for the Spectrum one that you're doing? The full
Okay,
Spectrum.
see, here's the thing: is I don't know.
Okay.
It's nice to say you're positive. I'm only positive after I've done it for a couple of years, and I really have the statistics in my mind of what works and what doesn't work.
Yep.
So I've had both sides. I've had people who muscle test and stuff, saying a little bit and then slowly raise it up and everything. And then I had a practitioner that had some major things, and we can't go into that because it's kind of making claims.
Yeah.
But he dramatically affected, and he was taking tablespoons of it, right? And I think I'm siding more on the slower process, right? Because slower still works. It just takes a little more time, right? And you see benefit. But in some cases, maybe they're older and stuff and they've had it for a while. They need a little bit more in the beginning. But right now, I'm going to say probably a teaspoon a day. It's mostly oils that aren't on the normal spectrum, where you talk about omega 3, 6, 9 are typical, right? But there's 27 omega oils. And we're using a bunch of other omega oils that aren't normally used for, and then we extract just that omega oil. So we're just doing the omega 6, and we're doing omega 14, 18, 27, or whatever. We don't say which ones we do.
Yeah.
It supports the pituitary and the hypothalamus and the pineal gland. It supports all these things, and all of a sudden miraculous things happen.
I love
Because
that.
they've never been supported. They're not readily available and in very small quantities, and we just narrow it down.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Crazy good. Yeah,
Super good.
If I could say what I actually have in regards to supplements, it'd be a whole different animal.
Yeah. And I know, the last thing I'll say is, because you mentioned this a couple times, the beta glucans. You're pretty bullish on these beta glucans, huh? And we know we find the beta glucans in like mushrooms and chaga and things like that.
They're all different kinds of beta glucans, but what you're really looking for immune function, and what it is, it tricks the immune system. That's what it does. Beta 136 glucan is very similar to a shedding of a fungus, right? So if the immune system sees the shedding, this beta 136, it assumes that it's fighting fungus every day of your life, right?
Yeah.
If it sees enough more than normal, it's going to address it by building the immune system, looking for that fungus.
Wow.
And it's going to find some, right? But the fact of the matter, it's going to find other things too. So the chagas have it in it. The beta 136. This one is made out from
like turkey tail or something.
No, it's made from. I never think about the sugar cane.
Jaggery palm.
Oh no, jaggery palm's a whole different animal. Jaggery palm is in the immune suite, but that has That has B1, B2, B6, B12 naturally occurring in it. It's like a maple syrup. It is a natural kind of antibiotic in
Yeah.
itself. This has all these natural elements in it, and it supports a kind of an antifungal basis of going after things. It also helps with leptin. That's been proven to regulate desire for food.
Yeah. Satiety.
When to shut it off.
Yeah. Huge. Awesome stuff. I want to wrap it up with some lightning round questions, but before I do, anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
We talked about a lot. There's so much thing. I mean, we could talk forever because I've been doing it for 28 years.
Yeah.
And I take calls from 9 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. So when I deal with somebody, and I'm not a practitioner or anything, but I try to support people through anything that they deal with me with, is that you get all these little insights. They share so much information with you, which I say, oh, that worked for you, that worked for you. So I learned something, and then I share what I know, and the combination seems to work really well.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Let's do some lightning round questions, and then we'll get you out of here. I'm curious, what are some choices that you made that you think made you who you are today?
I think the general concept of always wanting to be better than I am, right? So I got into supplements because I was pretty strong and everything else, but I saw this wee little weakling person, right? Come back 6 months later and he was this gorilla. I said, what the hell did you do? And he said, oh, I'm taking supplements and working out. I said, what are supplements? So I looked into that. So I was trying to be better than I was, and that got me on the road to thinking that I could be better than I am.
Yeah.
Okay? But, it's what you learn after you know it all that really counts, right? And my dad taught me that saying 1,000 times, and I proved him right 1,000 times because I always thought I knew something and I didn't. And my kids, and all the kids nowadays are in that category, right? They know it all and they really don't have a clue. And I'm still learning to this day when I think I have it wired. That's the best thing.
Keith, you're such a force in the wellness and health and wellness world. I'm curious, is there anybody that inspires you or anybody that you follow or anybody's work or anything like that?
Dietrich Klinghardt, my best friend, Hiba Hamida, he's so far ahead of me. I mean, I can't even tell you. And I mean, it pains me to say that. It's like I'm standing still compared to him.
Wow.
And he's a great guy, and he's very humble, and he has a sense of humor and very cordial. He knows a lot of world leaders. He sat down with Putin, which is a good guy, but he was so renowned that he was able to do it, and he knows, I'm going to say probably 30 different presidents of the world, and has helped a number of people with every kind of sort of thing, and he's a wealth of knowledge. A lot of things I developed myself, like the temperature thing and how to fix headaches and stuff like that. But when you go into the mechanics of the body, I can't hold a candle to him. He knows every artery, every vein, every muscle, every tissue of the body and how to remedy it.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's incredibly great.
Awesome. I'm a big reader. Are there any books that you'd recommend people read that had like a huge impact on your life? I don't know if there's like a top 1 or 1 to 3 at the most that...
I'll tell you something. I don't do a lot of reading.
Oh, yeah.
I learn firsthand from people direct. I learned a few podcasts recently that were amazing, especially the last one was from Gundry, I think it is.
Dr. Gundry, okay, yeah.
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 Talking about ketones.
You and I were talking about that, yeah.
Did you read that?
I read his
Or
book,
did you
yeah.
hear it?
I read his book, yeah.
But the fact that the ketones, from MCT oil go right to ketones, but the ketones correct the chaos in the mitochondria that has maybe too many protons and things that clog it up and cause this malfunctioning. And the ketones give it little escape routes to actually burn more calories, but actually to centralize the production of ATP. And I utilized it in a couple of products just recently that have dramatically improved the efficiency of it.
Wow. That's amazing.
So once in a while, they come to me, by the way.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to listen to the podcast. My wife said, listen to this. I think you'll find it interesting.
That's awesome.
And it was life-changing.
Yeah.
So I guess I should listen to more podcasts.
Yeah.
Right? But it seems to me I've been very fortunate that a lot of these things come to me by osmosis or by some other higher power. I'm not religious, but I believe that you can manifest things. Mm-hmm. And most of the things I've manifested, all these great products I made, were manifested, and they came out of nowhere. This kind of came in out of nowhere. This, they just came together and then correlated. And I'm analytical, so I saw the pattern.
Yeah. I'm curious. Last two questions. We'll wrap it up. Any like rituals or hacks or practices that you do on a regular basis?
Other than playing racquetball, a little bit of pickleball, and my wife loves to dance, and I like to dance, but she likes to dance a lot, right? Way too much, like 3 days a week.
It's keeping you young.
But it does keep you young, and the thing is, it's like that song says, when they ask you to dance, dance. I think that's the biggest thing, and I have sometimes hard to do that. But when that happens, I said, I should dance.
I love it.
Okay?
Go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, that was it. Last but not least, Keith Morey, where can people find you and your amazing products?
Supergoodstuff.com. You should read my narrative, the number one cause of all disease, cancer, and divorce. It's on the page under downloads. Read that first. Get a handle of how I think, and if you want to call me, I'll talk to you. I mean, if I get overwhelmed at one time, just like anybody, but at the present time, I have a manufacturer. I manufacture my own products. I'm manufacturing for other people, and I'm pretty busy. But I always have time to talk to people, at least at this point.
That's amazing. Keith, thanks so much for being on the show. Second time, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you having these podcasts.
All right. That's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Hack Life. And if you did, please share this episode on social media and then tag me at Joel Evan Coaching. And don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating so that you don't miss any other great episodes. We can only spread our message when you share this knowledge with others that need it. Thanks a ton, guys, for the support.